Welcome back to part 3 of the Melee mod series. I think this one will be the last one covering Skyrim melee combat for a while. Originally, I was going to cover 3 different core mods for this latest video: Attack Behavior Revamp, Engarde, and Deflection. Then, while I was in the process of recording video footage for ABR, this past weekend I saw a video go up covering ABR by Click4Gameplay. And after watching his video, well, he covered everything I was going to cover and then some. So I saw no real need for me to cover it again when he's done such a great job of it. So then I moved to Engarde. And guess what? Click4Gameplay had a great video covering that mod too. And it was fantastic. Once again, he covered everything I would have covered. That narrowed things down to just a single mod that was left: Deflection. Luckily, no one else has really showcased that mod, and after using it for a bit, I found it to be an excellent mod to combine with a few other mods to make an experience very similar to Inpa Skyrim combat, but without the script lag, without the stun locks, or the HUD changes, or the perk wonkiness. Now that might sound like I'm hating on Inpa Skyrim combat, but that's not the case. I still love that mod very much, even with all the issues that it has. But back to Deflection. I cannot praise Deflection highly enough. It's one that you can add to that underrated list without a doubt. But before I go on to properly showcase Deflection, I encourage you to go watch Click4Gameplay's coverage of Attack Behavior Revamp and Engarde. From my time spent with them, I found them both to be fantastic mods, and Click4Gameplay covers them in 2 different in-depth videos. So, what all this comes down to is that Skyrim is in a new golden age of melee combat mods. As end users, we are more spoiled for choice than we have ever been before. Like, seriously. You have quite a few choices for melee combat now. More than enough to offer everyone something that fits whatever they may want. You have Attack Behavior Revamp. You have Engarde. You have Deflection, Inpa Skyrim Combat, Sky SE, Combat Gameplay Overhaul, Ultimate Combat, Stances, and more. That is a lot of combat mods, my friends. And honestly, after spending a considerable amount of time with all of them, you really can't go wrong with any of them. They're each excellent in their own ways. It really comes down to the features that you want. So, with that said, let's get down to covering Deflection. Deflection is a lightweight combat mod that focuses mainly on timed blocking, parrying, and stagger. And it was designed to work alongside other popular combat mods. Or it can be ran as your one and only combat mod if you want. But of course, here at Mod Blender, we are all about combining mods together. So again, it's a very lightweight mod, and here's a big one: it is incredibly customizable through an MCM menu. And if you've been watching the other Mod Blender videos up to this point, you'll no doubt have gathered that I'm really big on player options and agency. I mean, just look at all the options in the MCM. You can pretty much customize and turn on or off every feature of the mod to suit your own tastes. Some of the mod's features are a timed blocking and parrying mechanic, an MCM menu for customizing settings to your liking. The mod is an ESL file, so it doesn't take up a slot in your load order. Damage scaling for both the player and the enemies, options for arrow and magic parrying, a configurable timed block window, the option to tweak NPC and player stagger settings, configurable stamina cost for blocking and parrying, configurable magicka cost for parrying incoming magic, options for setting the cooldown times, special support for utilizing the visual effects from Ultimate Combat, an option for disarming opponents with perfectly timed blocks, and configurable experience and message settings. Deflection's author strongly suggests that you use a mod that retimes the animation hit frames, and after testing it both with and without the modified hit frames, I second that suggestion. You actually don't even have to run a separate mod if you're already running Nemesis, as Nemesis has a checkbox option for the hit frames that you can check when building animations. I would also recommend an AI mod that changes up the enemy combat styles so enemies block more often. There are quite a few to choose from. Here are just a small few: Smilodon, Combat Evolved, Enhanced Enemy AI Reborn, and this one needs to be converted over to Skyrim SE because it's an Oldrim version. I used Enhanced Enemy AI Reborn for all of my testing after having used Combat Evolved for the longest time. The great thing I found out about Enemy AI Reborn is that it only makes combat AI improvements and it does not add anything else or change any other combat mechanics. The only downside is that it is an Oldrim mod and it needs to be converted over for use with Skyrim Special Edition. Some other mods to use with Deflection that I consider essential are the following. The only real issue I had while testing was Deflection's damage scaling for the player and enemies. I ran into two different issues with that part of the mod. First is that changing the damage scaling numbers in the MCM required me to save my game after I made the change, then quit the game, then restart the game and reload the save for the changes to properly take effect. If I didn't do that, then either I or the enemies would always wind up invincible and unable to be killed. Saving and restarting made things work properly again. The second issue is that I found the damage scaling unreliable, and I could never find numbers that made all enemies equally challenging or difficult. I'd end up with some enemies in the same groups taking me actual minutes of combat to kill, and then others that were fighting right alongside them that would get killed in like a single hit or two. If I did not touch the damage scaling part of the mod, then everything was fine. There were no problems at all as long as I didn't touch the damage scale. Now, it is very possible that I had some mods conflicting somewhere that caused this damage scaling issue. I mean, that is totally a possibility. Regardless, I solved the issue by using another dynamic damage scaling mod that allows you to customize damage scaling not only for the player and the enemies, but also for every single weapon type in the game, including magic. It is a fantastic little mod called Weapon Damage UI. I recommend Weapon Damage UI even if you don't run this particular mod mixture. It might just be the most customizable damage scaling mod out there. So anyway, let's move on to what everyone really wants to see, the mod mixture in action. And now here we are at the end of yet another episode. Like I mentioned at the start of the video, I think this will be the last Skyrim melee combat mod for a while. Between myself and a few other YouTube mod reviewers, I think most of the new stuff has now been covered. I hope you have found this video helpful, and thanks for watching.